All right, so now we are on topic 2, section 6. This is called nature of zeros of quadratic equations and functions. All right, so let's just start. Let's use the quadratic formula to discuss the nature of zeros of a quadratic function. Consider the graph of a function f of x equals x squared minus 4x plus 4. First of all, the quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to really figure out what we're doing, what we're talking about when we use the quadratic formula. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Where does the parabola intersect the x-axis? So where does it intersect the x-axis? Well, it intersects it right here, right? And it's at the point is 2, 0. Okay, so that is the vertex. That's our point of intersection, 2, 0. So now let's use the quadratic formula to find the zeros of the function. So my problem is x squared minus 4x plus 4. Okay, and it equals 0. So my a in this problem, well, there isn't one, so it's a 1. My b in this problem is a negative 4, and my c is a positive 4. Okay, now we can use the FSA calculator and it'll automatically give us the correct answer, but I'm going to show you guys what we're talking about in this unit, because it's a little bit different. Okay, so if I use my formula, x is equal to negative b, my b is going to be so I'm going to put x equals a negative, and it's already a b here, so instead of b, it's going to be negative 4. Okay, notice how there's two negatives right away. Okay, then I put plus or minus the radical of b squared. So my b once again is negative 4 squared minus 4 parentheses a. My a is negative 1. It's positive 1. Sorry about that. Positive 1. And my c is positive 4. I'm going to close my radical and I'm going to put it 2 times a. 2 times 1. Okay. So now let's simplify this some more, and I'm only going to show you a little bit. So negative times a negative is a positive, so that's a positive 4, plus or minus negative 4 squared. Well, negative 4 squared is going to be 16, because negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. Now, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, and negative 4 times 4 is a negative 16. And that's going to be 2 times 1, which is 2. Now notice something, 16 minus 16 gives you an answer of 0. So your problem is going to be looking like this, 4 plus or minus the radical of 0 over 2. Now the radical of 0, well, that's just 0. So no matter what I do, 4 plus 0, and I'll write that out, 4 plus 0 is just going to be 4. And 4 minus 0 is, again, just going to be 4. So really, the only answer is 4 divided by 2, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So notice, I got 2, and look at the answer that we got above. It was 2, 0. So that and this are the same thing. Now notice also, I only have one root, so I only have one of these. Sometimes I can have 2. So again, I could also have 2 roots, one right here, one right here. But this one, I only have 1. The reason I only have 1 is because of this 0. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. It's called the discriminant, but let's move on. All right, so let's move on to the next question. Consider the graph of the function f of x equals x squared plus 6x plus 8. All right, so once again, let's find our two roots. Now, the first root is right here, and the second root is right here. So these are my two roots. Now those points are going to be -2 and 0 and -4, 0. So this time we have two roots. Last time, remember, we only had one. So let's go ahead and let's figure out what is my A, what is my B, and what is my C. So the A in this problem is 1. The B is 6. And the C is 8. Okay? Remember the number in the front, the number in the middle, and the last number. All right. Now let's just go ahead and set up that quadratic formula. So x is equal to a negative b. So my b in this problem was a 6. So it's going to be a -6. Plus or minus, okay, plus or minus the radical of b squared. So it's going to be 6 squared minus 4 times a. Well, a is 1, and times c, which is 8. Okay. Then I put that over 2 times 1, because 2 times a, and a is 1. Okay. Now, if I go ahead and I put this one into my, my Desmos calculator, I'm going to automatically get two different answers. So let me explain. So I get -6 plus or minus. This is going to be 36 minus 32, because if I do 6 times 6 is 36, -4 times 1, and then multiply that by 8 is -32, and this is going to be 2. If I simplify this even more, that's -6 plus or minus the radical of 4 over 2. Now notice, this number is now a positive number. So my two answers are going to be -4 and x equals a -2. So if I did this on the Desmos calculator, I would get -4 and I would get -2. Once again, I got my two same answers from above. And notice that this number in the inside is a positive number. Last time, the number was a 0. So I'll go back. Last time, it was 0. Okay, so if I have 0, I have one answer. If I have a positive number, I have two answers. Okay, let's move on to our next one. Okay, consider the graph of the -x squared plus 6x minus 11. Okay, first of all, where does the parabola intersect? Notice how it doesn't hit the x-axis. So, no x-intercept. Okay, let's identify my a in this problem is actually a -1. Because notice there's a negative in the front. My b in this problem is a 6. And my c in this problem is a -11. Okay, now let's set up our quadratic formula. And I get x equals a -b. So it's a -6 plus or minus the radical of b squared. So it's 6 squared minus 4 times a times c. And that's going to be over 2 times a. Okay. If I break this down, I get -6 plus or minus. 6 times 6 is 36. -4 times -1 is 4. But 4 times -11 is -44. On top of that, 2 times -1 is -2. If I further this problem, 36 minus 44 is going to give me a radical -8. And I drop everything else back. Now, you can never have a negative radical. So because I have a negative inside, I can't go any further. Therefore, I have no x's. Okay, so therefore, if I have a negative, I have no x-intercepts, just like we saw on the graph. If I have a positive over here, I have two answers. If I have a 0, I only get one answer. Okay, And that is where we're going to move on. Okay, so the tip is actually really helpful. It says when using the quadratic formula, if the discriminant of the quadratic function, the part under the radical, is a negative number, then the zeros are not real. There's no real zeros. Complex solutions. So what it's saying is discriminant, and I'll write this up here. Please write this down. Discriminant is just going to be this right here. It's going to be the b squared minus the 4ac. Basically what that is saying is if under here I have a positive number, if the number is positive, I have two solutions. If the number is negative, I have 0 solutions. And if my number is 0, I only have 1 solution. Okay? So again, if my number underneath the radical is a positive, I have 2. If it's a negative, I have 0. And if it's a 0, I have 1. So let's practice really quick. So first off, use the discriminant to determine if the following quadratic equations have complex or real zeros. So how do I do this? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to identify my A, my B, and my C. So my A in this problem is a 2, the B is a negative 3, and the C is a negative 10. So the formula for discriminant is this right here. So b squared minus 4ac. So I take my radical and I put b squared. So it's a negative 3 squared minus 4 times a times c. Okay, let's further this answer. So negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. Negative 4 times 2 is a 8, negative 8. And negative 8 times negative 10 is a positive 80. Now, radical 89. So how many solutions would I have? Since my number is positive up here, like I said, this number is positive, therefore my answer would give me 2 solutions. And there you go. Let's do another one. Okay. For b, I have x squared minus 6x plus 9. So once again, identify your a. Your a is 1, the b is negative 6, and the c is 9. So I use my formula. It's a b squared. So b is negative 6. So I have negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9. Okay. Negative 6 squared is going to be negative 6 times negative 6. And negative 6 times negative 6 is 36. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And negative 4 times 9 is negative 36. Okay. This answer, 36 minus 36, is just going to be 0. So if I look back at the top, if I have 0, I only have 1 solution. Okay. Next, I have x squared minus 8x plus 20. So I'm going to identify my a, which is 1, my b, which is negative 8, and my c, which is 20. Okay. So I use my formula one more time. That's a negative 8 squared minus 4 times a times c. Okay. 8 times 8, or negative 8 times 8, is going to give you 64. And negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And negative 4 times 20 is going to give you negative 80. So that means you had $64. You have negative 80. So that means you have a negative 16 total. And remember, if I have a negative answer, therefore I have a no solution. No zeros. Okay, and here's where we're stopping the video.